It doesn't matter what is going to happen next in the world of technology. Sorry to several of the people we've heard from today. It doesn't matter at all. It's irrelevant because people do business with people. Always will do. I've been fascinated with people for as long as I can remember, and about 30 years ago, a very wise man showed me a template to understand human beings. I spent about 7 years with him, and I became obsessed with the system that he showed me. So obsessed that I did my own research. And this is back in the day when research meant getting something called a book from a place called a library. Remember those? And I went deep into this system. I found it has roots that go back thousands of years, and I found I was seeing it everywhere. I was recognizing different types of people if I took the time to look. What I'm going to do for you today is give you a taster. I'm going to give you a slice of this system. Within this system, there are 6 different types, and I'm going to give you a rapid view of one of the types. Every one of us is somewhere on this circle, and each one of those places on the circle is what's known as a type. And we can place anyone we meet on that circle. What I'm going to do is describe to you one type. I picked the Mars type today, and each one of these is named after a god or goddess of mythology. Mars was the god of war. Mars is always depicted as a warrior. What is intriguing about this system and what sets it apart from any other system such as Belbin, DISC, Myers-Briggs, color preferences, Enneagram, horoscopes, whatever it is you're into, this is based on observing physical characteristics. You don't need someone to talk or move. You simply look at the vehicle in which they are operating. And when you understand the vehicle, you understand the hardware of the person you're engaged with. And everyone's hardware has innate weaknesses and strengths and a certain default position. When you understand that, you can do business more effectively. So I'm going to describe one of them. I picked Mars because Johannesburg has a disproportionately large number of Mars people represented in the population. Has it gone? I get this one. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me? So I'm going to describe the Mars type, I'm going to describe their physicality, and towards the end of the presentation, we can hunt for specimens in the room. If you do not wish to be used as a specimen, I will look at you and it'll look as if I'm going to use you as a specimen. If you do not wish to be used as a specimen, there's a very polite way of saying no thank you, which we use in my country, and that's this gesture. So if I'm moving towards you and it looks like I'm going to pick on you and you want to say no thank you, just give me, let's all do this together. On the count of 3, let's just practice so you're comfortable with this very polite gesture that means no thank you. 1, 2, 3. We have both hands there at that table. Someone really needs to get out more. So if you're ever at an event, if ever like the Queen's butler offers you tea and you've got a mouthful of scone, just this. Mars is the god of war, and the month March is named after the god Mars because the Romans went to war in March. And if they won the war, they went home and they stood in front of a statue of the god and said, "Thank you, Mars. We won because you were on our side." There's a picture of Mars. Thanks to technology, you can now find hundreds of images of Mars in an instant. That's a medieval depiction. That is a Roman sculpture. And that is what a Mars person looks like. Physically, your archetypal Mars has a squarish face, strong shoulders, and they are robust. If they are female, they are quite tomboyish. If they are white, they are very likely to have piercing blue eyes and reddish hair. So far this morning, we have had 5 Mars people on this stage. Johannesburg is quite a Mars city. My favorite place to spot a Mars is when they're opening a door. If you can imagine that there's a door here that's a little bit sticky and you need a little bit of delicacy to open the handle, that's not the way Mars people operate. They force the handle, and if that doesn't work, they kick the door. Once the door is opened, it's now personal, so they'll slam it and kick it again. They will then march across the room. Mars people lean forward as they walk, and when they arrive, they've arrived. They are not famed for their patience. They like to go directly from A to B. Another great place to spot a Mars is in the supermarket, when the person in front of them has had all of their goods rung up and then begins to look for their money. Then you can watch a Mars, their blood pressure goes up, steam comes out of their ears, because they're standing there with their things ready to go and the cash in their hand, and they want things to happen now. Has anyone noticed anyone recently on the world stage with reddish hair and blue eyes who's a little bit out of control? Anyone? Shout it out, be bold. There he is, the man himself. Now, when a Mars is at their best, they are strong, they are loyal, they are hardworking, they are direct, they are goal-oriented. When they're at their worst, they are out of control, they are a loose cannon, they are dangerous, they explode. Any other world leaders that fit this description? Shout them out. Who? Putin desperately wants to be Mars. Putin probably has a poster of Schwarzenegger in his bedroom, and he dresses up as a Mars, but he's not Mars, and I think it makes him very sad. Here's a Mars. Yeah, Germany's a pretty Mars country. I think history's going to back me up on that one. Here's what happens when two Mars people meet. You can feel the love in the room, can't you? If you have a Mars employee and you set them a target and there is a reward linked to that target, when they hit that target, give them the reward immediately. Otherwise, you're the next target. Notice the expression, here is another meeting between two Marses. Same look, same vibe. Here's a Mars who's in the news. He very much enjoyed sitting in a helicopter machine gunning people. That was a very enjoyable thing for a Mars to do. I always like to ask Mars people what they did on their last holiday. It's normally something that most people would consider to be an ordeal. Mars people suffer for fun. If you go for a walk with a Mars and there's a cliff edge, guess where the Mars stands? On the edge of a cliff. Who has a Mars in their life from what I've described so far? Who has someone in their life they go, I've definitely... The recognition begins to settle in. This is the point where people go, wait a second, that's one of my employees, or even worse, I'm married to one. Mars people quite like alcohol. It doesn't calm them down. It tends to make them louder and more flamboyant. In the realm of sport, what sort of sport would they enjoy? Rugby. Here's a Mars rugby player. Yeah, they don't really enjoy badminton or chess. Here's a Mars concentrating. There's a Mars actress. You want to see the film Monster? She made a very bold choice to play a very unattractive Mars serial killer. So we have a Mars actress playing a Mars role. And when the type matches the role, people are empowered. When the type doesn't match the role, people are disempowered. They're unhappy and they're not effective. A lot of this system involves finding the right seat on the bus, recognizing someone's hardware, including your own, and recognizing where you are likely to be really high functioning. Also recognizing the types that your type doesn't get along with very easily, because some types attract, other types repel. Here's another one of yours. He was known as the pit bull prosecutor, am I correct? Yeah? So here he is with a pit bull. Another Mars animal. You often find that Mars people will get Mars animals as pets. They don't go for soft, fluffy pets. If you are feeling a bit fragile, it's not wise to ask a Mars friend of yours for feedback. If you say to a Mars, does my bum look big in this? They'll just say yes. Because Mars people believe really strongly in honesty. They give it out and they can take it. They believe if everyone just tells it like it is, the world would be a better place. And each one of these 6 types believes that. If everyone just acted and spoke the same way that I do, the world would be a better place. But it's not like that. Emma Stone, actress, Tasmanian devil. And during my research, I started to go into composers, artists, actors, writers. I went throughout history and found some really interesting Mars characters. Vincent van Gogh, depends who you talk to. Self-portrait, actual photo. So you can see he was a Mars who depicted himself as a Mars, and when you look at his artwork, he pretty much attacked the canvas. And when he lost it, he cut his own ear off. When Mars people lose it, they become destructive or self-destructive. I always enjoy watching a Mars with a smartphone, because they honestly believe if you press it harder, it works more quickly. And if the technology doesn't work, their next step is normally to threaten it. I own you, you will send that email, or I will kill you. Anyone in this room think they might be a Mars based on what I figured if I present Mars in a Mars city, I'm going to engage people. Engagement can mean being hated by most of the room, but it's definitely going to engage people. Serena and Venus Williams and their dad. It runs in families. It runs in families. And is it Venus Williams who generally breaks a few rackets out of pure frustration in every match? In movies, we give the Mars a gun and we call them the hero and we say, go and kill the bad guy. And when the Mars kills the bad guy, we go, woohoo. I watched Terminator 2 in the United States. I won't ruin the ending of Terminator 2 if you haven't seen it, but I was in a Mars city, and at the end of Terminator 2, the entire cinema stood up and cheered wildly. Has anyone ever been to or heard of a country where there are people with red hair and freckles that like to drink and fight? Anyone? Ireland, thank you very much. This is the frequency of red hair in Europe. You can kind of see where the Marses are from. And they didn't stop there, did they? They just kept going. The history of this area is really interesting. The original inhabitants of this area were not a Mars people. And then a Mars people showed up, and the original inhabitants melted into the background. And then another Mars people showed up. And then another Mars people showed up. So you have a triple Mars energy in Johannesburg. Layers of Mars people from all over the place. In case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a Mars, and this is my last laser printer. I was fair, I gave it 3 warnings, 1 more paper jam and you die. It's about $90, but cheaper than any therapy that I'm aware of. So, I've lined up a couple of specimens already, so I'm going to call upon them now. So I've asked them if they're willing to stand up and wave at us. So I've prepared a couple, but we can spot them fairly easily. My hope is that you'll spot them. It's no good me standing here saying, I can find these people, I can tell you what they're about. What's interesting is, can you find these people? Maybe by looking in the mirror. Eric with the crash helmet, would you please stand? Eric is the most Mars person in this room. He has taken the Mars Award. A little round of applause for Eric, please. Thank you very much, sir. Eric with the camera, would you stand, please? Eric with the camera there, close runner-up in the Mars Stakes. And is Vumile around? Is she in the room? She's not in the room. She was on stage earlier. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I loved your story because of your determination. As a Mars, you went, I belong there, and that is where I'm going. So thank you for your story. So when we see, yes, we see the power of a Mars in action is when they harness their energy in a direction that they want to go in, and they are utterly, totally determined. They do not let obstacles stand in their way. They do not let pressure sores or the skin being shredded off their hands stop them from rowing across an ocean. Peter's another Mars that was here earlier. And if you have Mars people in your life, what you're going to benefit from is the loyalty and the protectiveness that they show. Mars people do not tolerate injustice. If a big person is bullying a small person, a medium-sized Mars will stand in the middle and go, this has to end right now. So when you harness that energy and when it's working with you and for your organization, it's amazing. If you're in a negotiation with a Mars, get to the point. And if they're arguing with you, that means they're building rapport. If you're not a Mars, you might feel uncomfortable. It's actually a good sign. If I'm in a conversation with a Mars and it's getting argumentative, I'm like, great, I'm making a new friend. Anyone else in this room think they're a Mars? Anyone figured themselves out, just wants to raise their hand and have a brief, right at the, would you please stand? Yes, please stand. We had another, yes, thank you. You were on stage earlier. You certainly were, thank you very much. Multimedia. So, quite a few Marses have been up here so far. I'm not going to read these next slides because I'm assuming that you can read them for yourself, and the information goes in better if you read it than if I read it to you. I've got 2 slides for you. Slide number 1 will tell you how to disengage a Mars person. If there is a Mars person in your life and you want to demotivate them and deflate their energy and make them miserable, the following language is highly effective. Yes. Let's take everyone's feelings into account before we make a decision, shall we? If you have a Mars in your life and you want to engage and inspire them and motivate them, and you want them to get in line with you, to align with your values and to get on board with the project, the following words will turn on a Mars. Under no circumstances take my word for any of what I've just presented to you. Check this out for yourself. If you want to have a chat about this, I will be circulating at lunchtime. And use this language with a Mars and see if it works. And for those of you in the audience who are sitting here thinking, is my child a Mars? Have I given birth to a Mars? Maybe you have, and if you have, every now and then, they'll give you this look. That's one of the 6. That's just 1/6 of this presentation. My name's John Cremer. It is 1 minute and 44 seconds before the end of my time, but I'm a Mars, so I'm leaving. Bye.